I finished the video, and I'm going to add this at the beginning because some of you are going to have a problem with this. When you are doing set rotate, so modify set rotate, so you're not following along right now, you're just knowing that you're going to get to this in a minute. When I choose the match point on the target piece and I'm making a collar, it's essential that I touch down, highlight the line, and get right on that corner. If you don't get right on that corner, your collar's going to turn out wrong and you're going to be wondering what's the matter. And I have to get the matching point exactly too. If I miss, I'm going to miss on purpose. Then when that lines up and I try to make my collar there off, and I did it enough that you could see it, but if you're off by a tiny bit, it's actually worse because you don't always notice right away. So when you're doing set rotate this time, please be aware that you have to be precise. Modify set rotate, highlight, get the inner corner, touch the line, get the inner corner and touch the line. Make sure you get those yellow boxes highlighted so that you're not really frustrated in 10 minutes. I've got my jacket pieces. I'm going to need my map and my back pieces to create the collar. Set rotate, match point on the piece that's not moving and the shoulder, and the match point on the piece that's moving. Cancel. Okay, so for convenience, I'm going to copy the line from this piece onto this one and just move it out of the way so I can gauge how far I'm overlapping. So create copy line. This line is being copied onto this piece. Say OK, there's the line, cancel. And cancel to get out of it. So I'm setting that aside, and now you can see that this is here. And I'm going to, if I want my collar to be a full stand collar, a full roll collar, I'm going to offset this line 4 inches this way so I can see when I bump into the line. So create line offset, choose this line, and I'm just going to watch it over here. Well, there. +4. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate this piece, modify piece rotate, choose this piece, say OK. I am going clockwise and it wants a reference location, so I'm going to touch. I chose the rotation point wrong. Look at how cool that is. You can choose a rotation point anywhere. Okay, anyway, undo. Modify piece rotate. Check to make sure that you're rotating clockwise, and I am, and I want a reference location. Sometimes you can do it without a reference location, but then you're never sure what part of the piece you're going to grab. So there's my piece to rotate. And the point to rotate around is this one. You all knew that when I did it. and my reference point is this one. So I'm going to rotate that piece until this line, which would be the shoulder corner, touches that line that's 4 inches away. And I've got a bump there. So I'm going to blend that probably over into here. Create line 2-point curve. And I want this piece. And I'm going to blend to right there. I can clean it up later if I want to. Yes, I like that. So I'm going to set that down. And now I need to decide how long my collar needs to be. Well, since this collar is a full roll collar and it's going to come up the back of the neck and fold back down, and then I'm going to want it to cover that line. If I want my collar to be 1.25 inches tall and then come back down and hide that, I need 1.25 inches plus 1.5 inches. So that's a minimum of 2 3/4. So I'm going to create a line. I'm going to come down to perpendicular on line, and the point of intersection is distant from point. I'm going to measure from this corner, and clockwise I want to come down 2.75. Say okay. So that's giving me a little guideline. I could pull it all the way out. But I want a right angle right here. I would be excited to sew this together and try it out and see how it works. This is fun. I'm also going to give myself a little continuation of this line right here. I want this piece. But because I made that crazy line so long, there we go. So right here, I might have to fix that, but it will help. Well, maybe not. I want my map. Okay, there we go. Connect to that line and just pull it out straight right there. Okay. So I need to delete that other little line. But you won't need to delete it because you didn't do that. Okay, so my collar needs to come down this far, and then it needs to join that piece. So I've got this guideline here, but I don't have to use it. I think I'm going to make it a little different. Create line 2-point curve, but that's up to you. I'm thinking I want to bring that out here, and I'm going to bring it out a little bit further. No. It just really wants to go to that purple line. Okay, I'm going to bring it out further. Because as this goes up and falls back down, it's going to pull away from this space. So it's going to look a little different than that when I actually make it. And then I kind of want to curve that. Anyway, I'm making this a lot more difficult than it needs to be. The part that's going to become the collar, and I don't have to leave this piece as the collar. That looks a little odd to me, but what I've created there would be a collar. Create piece, trace, and so that you can see it, so you can make your own decisions a little bit better. This is the center back of the collar. This is the beginning of the design edge. I can change the shape of it. I probably don't want it to be perfectly straight there. And then I want that line. And this one. And that little one I just put there. And that new curve coming into the back neck. So this is what I've created to be my collar, and I think that's kind of a weird shape, but it came together with what I wanted. And the internal line that I want for grain line is that one. So that's my back collar. And I'm going to call it my under collar because I like to make the top collar bigger rather than the under collar smaller. Okay, so look at the book at the type of collar you want to make, and know that that looks weird to me too. So I'm going to play with it a little bit now that I've made it. I'm going to rotate it back around. Modify, realign piece. Well, now where did it go? Oh, there it is. I'm going to flip it over the other way. Okay, I'm also going to move the grain line. And adjust the length. Well, that's weird. I've got it upside down and backwards. So I changed the length and now I'll move it. There. Okay. So this is the center back. It lines up right there, so it's this shape, and that's where that goes. This is what sews in to the lapel. And I think I'd rather make it a little bit longer and curve that around. This is my best guess. I'm not sure it's going to be exactly what I want, but it's enough to cut out a single piece and sew it together and shape it with the lapel. So I'm just going to give it my best guess and not stress over it. So I'm going to create a 2-point line that's a little longer than that one, and it disappears in there, so it's pretty much the same. And now I'm going to create a 2-point curve. No, I'm going to start with a perpendicular line on line. I'm going to come down a little bit longer. And that again, perpendicular line on line. I only have half selected this time, and then I just touch the line so I know I've got a perpendicular line there. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to 2-point curve, and I'm going to come back from there, and I'm just going to curve that a little bit more. And then I'm going to swap those two because that's my best guess for my design. Modify line swap this line and this line for this line. Okay. So that's my undercolor, and I'll delete my extra lines. And I only used this line and the one out here to swap with, so this line automatically stayed on the same trajectory of a right angle that it already was. Modify line combine. So I have my corners and my lines. So I'm going to put this back over here for just because I want to. Set rotate. Well, that changed it some. And as it stands up and falls down, this is going to pull away. And if I make it out of wool or something, I can steam it just the way I want it to be. But what I want to check right now is the length of this line compared to the length of those two. So I'm going to split this line, modify line, split, where that one joins. Oh, I keep doing that. And then, oh, okay. I'm going to have to highlight my map again, because it's the map line I need to split, and I need to split it right there where that joins it. And then I need to open that back up again and say clear. And if yours isn't showing up here on this side of the screen, you can bring up that same thing by highlighting those three dots down here at the bottom of the screen. Those three dots will bring it up or out. And if you want it to dock over here, then just pin it to the taskbar while it's open, and then it will be over here. Okay, so I split that line, and now I'm going to measure some lines. Verify line length. I want this one and that one and that part of that one. So 3.081. Do those two add up to that? .081 plus 2.203. 5.284. Oh dear. Well, that's just a tiny bit longer than this one. So minus 5.268 is 0.016. So I want my collar to be a little bit bigger, and I think, well, that's my undercolor, so I'm not going to do that. In fact, my undercolor I'm going to put on the biased. But my neckline, if I want to pull this out so that it's actually exact, then I need to add 0.016 to the collar. And when I get to the top color, I'm going to add a little bit more for ease. So create line offset this line on the collar, and I'm going to move that out in the positive direction, 0.016, and say OK. Well, that's not very much of a difference, is it? But I found that when I worked in a factory and I was making patterns, if they had trouble in the factory, I didn't want it to be because I was sloppy, so I would change it for that. So I'm going to swap, modify, line swap. Did I do that to the right piece? Yes, I did. Okay. So 3.081 is where I want my notch to be over here. So notch, create, notch, distance from point. I want to measure from, I want to measure from this corner, and I want to use that number. And it should be negative 3.081 because it's going counterclockwise. But if I find that the notch has gone down here, then it's because my piece is upside down and backwards. And let's see, I don't see a notch there. Oh, there it is. So if I walk the pieces, I'm going to delete that line because it's confusing me. And I don't have a right angle right here either, so I'm going to end up fixing that before we're through too. But I think in order for you to care, I'll have to show you why, so we'll do that. Okay, verify, walk pieces, so I'm up in the top row, verify, third one over, walk pieces, select the lines on the stationary pieces, and that's going to be this one, change direction, and oh dear, there we go, this one, and say OK. And this is the piece that's walking, and it's going the wrong direction, so I'm going to change direction on that. Now everybody's going to... Okay. So as I move along, we can see if that notch is exactly in the right place, and it is, and that makes me so happy. And then what happens over here? And that lines up, and I could have actually walked this over here too. But look at how nicely that lines up. But I will walk that with my front. Okay, so I'm going to realign that piece. This piece looks good. It's a really good first guess. And usually I will sew a test one up first if it's something that I haven't really done before. Or I'll just sew the collar as a test piece and attach it and make sure that it's moving and shaping the way that I want it to before I cut it out and finish it. Okay, so modify, realign piece. So if I don't fix this so that it's a right angle, and maybe it's not as bad as I'm imagining, but I usually will modify piece mirror, the mirror line on the piece, and if this starts to come up to a point at all, then I know I need to cut it off. And it's extremely slight. If I did create 2 point and I touch down here where I can see This is the most inside point, and then go vertical with it. That is where it really needs to be. So I'm just going to undo it. And go ahead and do that again. Create 2-point. I could do perpendicular on line, but then I'm guessing from the other direction, so I like to just go from there and save. And see, that's even less. But I'm still going to split it and do it, because if the sewing department has any problems whatsoever and they find these little things, they come back to you with 100,000 of them, and I never wanted that to happen to me. I watched it happen to other people. So be neat and meticulous. Modify line split. And then swap this line for that line. And then delete. It's not a big deal when you're just making one, but if they're going to cut out a stack of 300 in multiple sizes, that just is bad news. Modify, line, combine. Okay, so I've got my undercollar. And we want to add our button placement. So I'm going to send this one to the menu. I don't think any of the others are new. Want to realign that one. And then there's this thing. That I used to, oh, there it is. It's called separate pieces. And F2 is how you would do it, but it brings all the pieces on the screen where you can see them. And that must be, I have no idea where that is. Which is why I try to make sure I don't use the shortcut keys. Okay. So I'm going to clean up, modify, delete my extra lines. Except not the ones that I want to have on there, so I remember that I did it. There are my backs and my side and my new front and the facing that goes on top of it. And while I'm right here, oh, and my collar. I wanted to show you another random thing that I'm not expecting you to do, so just watch. The way I made this was a very simple, basic front. And this is the roll line. The way I made it is really a fold line. It just folds back on itself. But if you want it to be truly a roll line, so that there's more space for the fabric and the collar extends out a little bit further, because folding over takes up space. So if you want to increase the size of that, I would get out the book and look into collars and roll lines. But I would go into advanced taper, fullness tapered, and your slash line would be on the body up to the neck, and say OK, and the location to remain stationary this time is going to be the regular part of the piece rather than the center front, and I would want to take those two with me and say OK, and I could decide right through here the amount extra I want for that roll line, and it looks like I'm adding, there's about a ½ inch. So this could be the extra amount that you add for your roll line. That's a slightly more complicated way to do it, but it's also more accurate. If you're going to do that, then you need to think through all of the blending and several other things, and I'm trying to keep this simple for you, but if you did that, you would end up just blending back into it. So you have your roll line. It's a little bit more complicated than that in the book, but I was just doing it on my map, so that's up to you. If you want to do it, just get out the book and look in the lapel and collar chapter. Okay, so I'm going to add my button placement. And then we'll end this video and start a new one. I didn't copy my actual center front line, so I'm going to use that one. Create line offset even. This line is 5/8 of an inch, so negative 0.625. Say OK. And then modify the line. So I just need to bring it up as high as I want my first button. So do I want my first button? My lapel's gonna, yeah. I think I want my first button about at that 5/8 of an inch below that line. So you can choose where you want that to be. I could have undid that before. Yeah, so the lapel line is back here, so I could actually put my first button a little bit higher. So that's part of your design choice. But this is where I want my buttons to be, and I want to think about how far up I want my last button. So I'm going to change the length of the line again. First button here, last button 2 inches up, 4 buttons or 3 buttons, whatever you want to do. So you would come in and create multiple points on a line. I want both ends to get points. I want them to be marked points. This is the line that's getting them. And that's where I want them. And I'm going to put on 2 because I'm already going to get 2. And so that's where my buttonhole placement and button placement is. And we'll end there and resume on the next one.